we all are doing this kind of very profound and important personal and professional development work in our lives. And part of what I wanted to do was take the some of the elements from generative change, some of these key processes and principles, and put some of them together to create what I called a generative citizen. And the point of being a generative citizen is partly because, you know, I keep on meeting people who are wanting to make a difference in the world. And I keep on thinking, but we've got the skill set. We've got the absolutely perfect kind of skill set for this. And somehow it would be great if we could sort of bring some of that together for people so that you could focus on how can we all develop so that we are ready to contribute to, you know, the big goals of the world that we share, you know, bringing peace into the world, all those lovely things. So I came up with the idea of a generative citizen, somebody who is around and about everywhere. This is kind of generative change for everyday life. And it's sort of how you are and what you're bringing into the field kind of everywhere you go, just with the postman or the shops or the, you know, not necessarily the big occasions, although obviously for the big occasions too, but more those little everyday encounters where what we do and the way that we do it makes a difference to the energy and the peacefulness and the creativity and the generativity of all those kind of networks and connections that we can between people. So I'm going to start off with my, I've got a slide set. I've got 5 key principles to kind of bring together, and hopefully there'll be time to do a little mini exercise on each of them. And then at the end, hopefully there'll be some time for some questions or anything else that you want to add. Is it possible to take the bell out of the, to silence the people joining, Achim, just because the bell is going off a lot? Is that all right? I can hear that. If we could mute that, that would be great. So yesterday, and Jenny was with me last night, so she will remember, I literally did a demonstration with somebody from who has I've known for many years, is developing you know, an organization to make a difference in ecology. You know, this has always been her passion. And we were working together just with these very basic kinds of tools. And it gave her kind of like this tremendous re-access point into the, you know, into the field. I mean, one of the things that she said was she felt less lonely. You know, she felt she'd been kind of carrying this burden, but there's something that all of us can do, that all of us share and want. So, you know, let me start with these anyway, with my slides. So the ones I want is this one, I think. So, as I say, I've called it Generative Citizen, and what I want is to be able to more consciously bring the healing and creative skills of generative change into the field of everyday life with a shared vision for a more socially just and healing and kind of happy world. I feel, you know, this is our time. We've got our contribution to make, and we can make it. And this is some of my ideas for how we can do that. This is what I always have in my NLP presentations, that for me, NLP is about leadership in the community. It's about using our tools and skills for social change and social justice and the well-being and health of the people and the planet. So this is, the idea is that it's like, I called it, this is a joke, obviously, the civilian wing of generative change. And it's not really a professional role like a coach or a consultant or a therapist or something. It's kind of all and none. but it could be a dedicated developmental path and program for all of us, so that we are bringing this, very particular, skillful, soft presence into all of our relationships everywhere we go, including our relationship with nature, of course. And that we can more and more embody deeply in an integrated way resources and potential for empathy and creative renewal everywhere we go. And I'd like us to have more influence. I'd like people who are working at the edge of change. And again, I know people who are really involved in some extraordinary projects. And this is what they're looking for. They are looking now to really sort of develop people along the lines that we already have all the tools and experiences for. And then I also want us to evolve our field to be much more inclusive and diverse. And I think we've got a lot to learn from many different kinds of communities, and especially more marginalized people. So I'm really up for, proactively kind of doing something about that, extending our networks and our understandings and our openness and curiosity to learn from many different people. So here are my 5 practices. And as I say, one of the things, I'm going to take you through my slides, and then we'll go through each one at a time, and I'll do a demo, and we will have a chance to do work with somebody as well. So the first one is, obviously, if you're a generative change person, is the coach crash issue. State, this kind of generative state, integrated state, where you can be present in the living moment and be with whatever arises in a kind of centered, open way. This is fundamental, I think, and it underpins all the other pieces of work that we would ever do along this kind of track. The second one is identity. I'm going to come to all of these. There's one on empathy, one on communication, and one on what I'm calling a citizen's knowledge base, which, you'll see what that is in a moment. So here is the coach crash. As I say, it's the core practice, basically. Crash as a source of information about the shadows, what's missing, the problems. We want an informed, intelligent kind of coach state and this kind of field awareness. And one of the ways that I have recently been making my little contribution into this is I'm a student of the Alexander technique for many, many years. And so I brought something in for us that's a little bit based on that. So here's our coach crash model. I'm assuming that a lot of people know it. I can take us through it when we come to it, but this idea that, you're centered, open, aware, connecting and holding whatever arises and able to be in relationship, even with suffering. Or we're more contracted, literally that neuromuscular lock. We're more easily triggered. We're more usually up in our heads, spinning our wheels cognitively. We feel separated from our own resources. I mean, I think that's really interesting, where you just kind of go, I can't get hold of my, capabilities, my compassion, my, strength, whatever. And you're separated from other people as well, of course. And this is where I think violence or difficulties emerge. You start hating yourself, or you start hating other people, etc. So this is, I think, prime. And I think this beautiful model, certainly in the COVID years, I have learned, I've really, really worked with this. And I think that I'm sure you've seen these kind of scales, because it's not a digital on-off binary. You're either in coach or in crash. You're a living person moving through your day and kind of moving around that scale and being more able to be at your best self obviously starts to really kick in at about 7, I think. So 7, I think, is pretty reasonable. And then when you're slipping down the numbers, I think then, it's bringing awareness into what's really happening and having the tools to, in a completely healthy, integrated way, make little adjustments so that you can be more at your best whenever, whoever, wherever you go. So the Alexander technique that I'm going to bring in, we're going to do like a tiny little exercise. Those of you who don't know, he was a teacher born in Tasmania. He was an actor with these sort of throat problems. He used to do these, these speeches, and he was always losing his voice. And so he spent like literally years and years looking at himself in a kind of micro way. He really was a modeler to find out what was happening. Why was he losing his voice all the time? And he found at least one of the things he was doing was pulling his neck back and tightening all around in his neck and shoulders, what we would call like a crash, a somatic kind of tightening up. And so he created this whole amazing kind of process to promote an effective, efficient use of the use of the body and of the self. And if you go to lessons, you learn just through the soft guiding touch of a teacher. And a lot of people use it in sport, or they use it in music, playing an instrument, because it's about awareness of habits and reactions. So this is where it fits for us, is bringing awareness to our reactions and our habitual ways of being and thinking. It allows us to stop and pause. It allows us to know that what feels normal when we're like this is just, we've just got used to being very, very stressed and held. And then there's this idea that there's a primary control, which is through the head, neck, and shoulders. So you can see on this little joint, we'll do something with that. There's someone walking along in a kind of, with poise. And here's someone playing with poise, utter, beautiful, poised. And here's another very poised person who's using their bodies, in this kind of really extraordinary way. And so this is something that I would bring into the Coach Crash. Number one point on my list for Generative Citizen is like, how can we develop our somatic intelligence? And so this is at least one suggestion. Obviously, there's a million ways that you could do this. There's a million ways you can go into Coach Crash and explore and extend and enrich your skill with it and your competence with it. So the second part is this idea of identity, which is more like the way of awakening, waking up to yourself, waking up to how you fit and contribute and are created by and create our living world of, community and relationships and change and learning and growth, etc., etc. Obviously, there's lots of different models. I'm sure you know a lot of them. I mean, re-imprinting, work with the shadow, for example, or archetypal energies. All of this work in the Generative Citizen would be done and connected always with this kind of base platform in the coach state. And I just love this list from Robert Dilts, which is about clarifying our identity. All of us have a lifetime's journey in this, I think. Finding, clarifying our life's direction, managing boundaries between ourselves and other people, becoming clear about the beliefs that support us and those that don't, expanding our sense of self, kind of enriching our sense of self, incorporating new dimensions of being over our lifetimes and becoming more present in who we are. So this is like a big, rich project, all of its own. And again, there are multiple entry points and things that could be done. I mean, in a group, you could have a whole year's program, literally just on this if you wanted to. So here's so I just added in then I love these paintings, these are portraits. So this is why it's under identity. I love these portraits. And they're by a brilliant painter called Amy Sherald, who painted Michelle Obama, that beautiful picture of Michelle Obama. But they're just, what I like about them is just, there's the person. identity. That's the clarity of kind of seeing a person there. So the third one is the practice of empathy. And this is obviously fundamental to a contribution in the world, is to develop compassion and understanding of others. And my suggestion for this is that we really bring in a lot more kind of art and, drama and literature and music and, painting and things like that into the field. As part of the Generative Citizen, we would tap into the vast resource of world, arts and creativity to kind of start to enrich our sense of fellow feeling for other people, stepping into other people's worlds and kind of understanding them. This is what I've picked as a slide for this. This is by wonderful Aboriginal Australian artist, Indigenous Australian artist called Judy Napangadi Watson. And I mean, imagine being a person who painted that. Wow. I mean, what an incredible inner life. What an incredible way. This is how somebody sees the world. This is how they literally kind of, this is their inner outer model of reality. It's so beautiful. It's so dynamic. It's so endlessly interesting. And I think for me, that idea of empathy, to step into works of art and take on something about those perspectives and feelings and relationships that other people can see, that that's what art allows us to do, to have access to new worlds upon worlds upon worlds. So this is this is just a silly little thing really, which is also about empathy. It's like, it goes, me, what are you drawing? 5-year-old, oh, just a picture about how I feel. Me, oh, I love that. Can I see the picture? I love this. It's so terrible. It's child being eaten by something. Anyway, just feelings, we're just talking about people expressing feelings and understanding each other. Then this installation I've put in here, it's an installation on male violence by a Chilean artist called Elena Chauvet. And I don't know whether you may have seen this. It's just a fantastic piece of work. So it's just this, the red shoes. It's just, what an extraordinary thing. And that's what I mean, I think, just entering into the sensibility of different artists. We don't give ourselves much of a chance to do that in a lot of NLP and generative change kind of, we're working with change processes and things like that. So this empathy, developing empathy in and of itself, working with drama, working with art, working with felt access into different people's lives and worlds. This is the fourth one, which is about communication and relationship. So again, a whole year's program could be this, but obviously really looking at things like how we use language and images and the manufacture of consent, this idea of, we're all in our own bubbles. This is really, I think, the graphic that is the most horrifying to me. This was a graphic, I think, during the 2016 election, just showing how different people were looking at social media and just noticing that we are, we're in different worlds from a lot of people. So how can we continue to evolve how we can communicate and how we can kind of interact meaningfully and empathetically with people who are maybe in a bubble where they've, particularly gone down a rabbit hole of, hatred, or in some kind of crash state, way of thinking about the world. we've got to develop, how we communicate well, I think. And then the final one, just in this brief overview, is what I've called a citizen's knowledge base. So in other words, we're going to be in, coach state, evolving ourselves, empathetic with others, able to communicate well. And then what I would like for us in these fields where we want to contribute into the world is for us to have some just basic shared reality about sort of history and things like colonialism, especially, I'm just talking from the UK right now, things about, patriarchy and sex and class and poverty and climate crisis and environmental crisis. These are, I know, controversial and challenging things, but one thing that we can do is actually know a little bit our stuff, And so I've made, so this is something, for example, that happened in the UK. I think it was not last summer, but the summer before. And I mean, from my point of view, it was a wonderful, wonderful thing. This is for those of you that don't know, this is a statue of a man called Edward Colston from Bristol, and he was a slave trader, and a very, very wealthy one. And people in Bristol had been asking for this statue to be taken down for like literally years and years and years. There'd been petitions, there'd been actions, there'd been all kinds of things. And then during the Black Lives Matter movement, just a whole bunch of people just went and pulled him off his plinth, rolled him up the road and dumped him in the harbour. And historically, this is not a new thing. This is what happens to statues, that no longer represent what people want. The statues in the marketplace that are of, genocidal figures, we don't really want them there. So I thought this was a wonderful thing to do. And anyway, what happened after that was this great activist stood on the plinth, and then someone made a statue of her. Unfortunately, I took that down. But anyway, I thought that was a great, no one was hurt. It was a beautiful piece of public political theatre. And it drew attention to something which is often, sort of, it shouldn't really be controversial, that so much money in the UK was created through slavery. But a lot of people really don't know that. So I've got some really simple books here, which might possibly constitute a kind of reading group for Generative Citizen, and especially Generative Citizens who, are working all the time in a coach state, so that people don't get triggered or argumentative or ideological about things, because we don't need to do that. But it would be good if we just had some just good things to say. So one of them is David Olusoga's Black and British. There's a great children's version of it as well. He's a wonderful historian on our televisions, done some great research about how, African soldiers manned Hadrian's Wall, which is one of the Roman walls in the UK. Wonderful book by Caroline Criado Perez, Invisible Women, which does this, exposes the data about the default male in so many things, especially things like crash test dummies, lots of medicines, lots, like the PPE recently was only ever tested on men. It all fitted men, it didn't fit women. And then there's another one, Guy Shrubsole, who owns England. So I'm not trying to be proselytizing and political here at all, really. I mean, well, a little bit, but just so that there's a kind of grounded sort of sense of, yeah, we're an informed group of people. We're informed and we're working to inform ourselves. So there's some more kind of resources. So here's the 5 practices working together: coach crash, identity sort of awakening, the idea of empathy, communication relationship, and this idea of a citizen's knowledge base. So those are my 5 those are my 5 kind of principles working together. So the way I would see it would be that maybe groups would get together and, you know, and you would weave these different things, you know, in and out and through a whole kind of developmental process together. So I think it could be a very, very rich experience for us, and would, as I say, create a fantastic readiness and awareness to fully engage and participate and support the new dreams of what's possible in our world, especially in a world of war. You know, how are we going to bring ourselves into everyday life, looking at the kind of scenes that we're looking at every day? And you know, it's not an easy question to answer, I think, but this is a proposal from me. And so what I'd like to do next is to just do like a little exercise from each one of those, and for you to have a feel of some of that for yourself. But first of all, I'm wondering if there are any you know, comments. Obviously, it's very compressed, what I've given you like a taster of some of the ideas in it. Anybody want to comment? I mean, was it interesting? Did you think it was, you know?
Yeah, very interesting, very interesting. My question is always how proliferate these ideas, and I think it's also important to walk the talk, you know.
Right.
But we have also the last couple of sessions, of course, subjects which are, of course, inevitable. How is it? Inevitable? No, it's Italian, I think. Yeah, we can't go on like this, and it's not only on the environment issue, but also on the social issue. How do we speak to each other? How do we grow in relationship? And I think you are here in the right group, because we all think like this.
Great.
The question is how can we? Yeah, because I think that the work of Julian is the same, no? It's the same, not the same, but the fundamentals are the same.
Well, this is one of my answers. You know, how can we do it? Well, we do it by, you know, we do it by doing the practices, and we do them in relation to each other. And then who knows what comes out of that? But it's like a commitment along a pathway of development with this kind of healing and social justice and, you know, all of those things in mind as a contribution. But it's more of a kind of everyday thing, you know. But yes, thank you. Anyone else like to comment? Okay, so excuse me, I'm going to go back to the idea of the Alexander technique. Anybody else here ever done the Alexander technique? Anybody else? So Marina has. Michelle, hey!
I just wanted to make a comment.
Yeah.
Hi, Judith. It's
so good to see you. I haven't seen you for ages.
I really like the idea. I like the structure of how that, you know, it's a very nicely knit model. And what comes to mind is that it's just really begging for us to learn that in order to be able to use it on a collective or a global scale, to have projects around that, you know, this whole idea of generative citizen, and actually creating projects within NLP for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
You know, which is a bit like what Judy and I have done. You know, Judy and I have had this project. We've had a project for 20 years called Passion
Absolutely.
Action.
And it's good for us. It's good for, you know, that to expand. And,
Yeah.
you know, the other thing I was thinking of is this idea of, you know, it's like climate change and art. It's like bringing all of these different elements together within, you know, some projects that we could do together. I think it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Lovely.
Anyway.
It's so nice to see you, Michelle.
It's good to see you.
I'm hoping to actually be in person in California in the summer. So
I hope to see you.
We'll literally see each other for the first time in ages. Yeah. Lovely.
I'm going to put the stop video on because I'm kind of multitasking here, but I'm listening to every word you say.
Okay, lovely.
Okay.
Okay, so let's
one comment.
Yes, of course, James.
I really love what you're doing and providing a focus for the energy of so many of us who are looking for ways of expanding this work.
Yeah.
I have to leave after about a little more than an hour, and I'm hoping that there's a recording that I'll be able to then catch up with.
Yeah.
Another piece that links very much and overlaps in so many ways with this work that you've presented here is the Presencing Institute and their work, which is very much about applying a generative creative state within a group of diverse people.
Lovely. I've got a friend who works, you know, a lot at looking at systems and ecology and things like that. And I now can't remember the institute. He sent me something, and it's an institute, and they are literally going, we want to develop, you know, everyone who's working on projects with us along these lines. And it's literally what we do. So it would be so great if we really could kind of go, hey, everyone, you know, we're literally doing this stuff. That is the stuff that makes a difference to everybody's projects, you know. So thank you. That's good to know. Okay, so I want to just do something on coach state first, which I'm assuming everybody knows. Is there anybody that hasn't done anything on coach state and doesn't know what it is? So I thought I would just do something through sort of a little Alexander technique exercise. I mean, it's not really, it's just awareness to a particular part of the body. So I'd love to have a demo person and maybe somebody who gets sort of, you know, a shoulder ache or neck ache or something like that would probably work quite well, but it doesn't really matter. You know, who would like to just explore another way of going from crash to coach with me? And it's a more somatic way. You can't, did you put your hand up, James? Yeah, lovely. Let's do that. So, yeah, I'm just going to explore really, first of all, I'm wondering, actually everyone in the group can do this, because the idea of the Alexander technique, as I showed you, it's that atlanto-occipital joint. If you just put your fingers behind and just notice, you know, where your head is joined to your spine and like what the muscles are that move it, just trying to get a little bit of feedback in the back of your neck there, just so that we know what we're talking about when the head tips back and when it tips forward, so you can just kind of feel a little bit like where we're talking, because this is the crucial part of the Alexander technique. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and make this as really, really simple as we can do it, because it's just a tiny thing. So James, I'm wondering, so you can just, you know, be however you want to be. I wonder if there's something which from, you know, time to time, you get a little bit sort of, you know, your crash numbers start kind of maybe sort of 5 or 6 or 4 or 5 or something like that. You don't have to tell us what it is. Can you think of something like that where you know you're not, you know, you're a little bit more in crash than you are in coach? It's just something maybe that you get a little bit triggered by, or, you know. Yes. Okay, great. So I want you just to take a breath, and I just want you to notice like what's going on for you as you kind of tighten up a bit. I don't know whether you can sort of feel now.
My head is, so like, it's almost like a turtle. I feel it coming. I lean forward a little bit with my head.
Yeah.
Wow, it's almost pulling back a little bit and down.
Yes, just that little pull back.
Just a little, yeah.
Yeah. Very beautifully discerned, if I may say so. Very good.
And as I do that, my chest kind of drops a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, very much turtle-like. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, that is what's meant by neuromuscular lock. It's a relationship between, what our body does and what our mind does and our emotion system does, as we go a little bit more into crash. So what I'm going to invite you to do is just kind of like be sitting and, and just kind of be a little bit more centered and breathing. So we can just slow that down a little bit and you can pause and breathe. And I wonder what happens as I'm just going to take you through some of the Alexander type ideas, which is just allowing your shoulders to drop and open. And allowing your jaw to be a little bit soft and your face to be a little bit soft. And your spine to be lengthening and your back broadening and widening. As you just take a breath and let your shoulders just be you can just loosen out your shoulders if you like. Open your eyes a bit and then you can also see me and mirror a little bit to me. So you can just like let those shoulders kind of just relax and find their place. And let your neck and your head on top, just free up that space. I mean, this isn't really Alexander technique, but it's just like really taking it from there, that we're just going, this is one of the main places we're going to focus on. And take a breath and let it out. So your spine is lengthening down towards gravity and up against gravity. Amazingly, our spine is like kind of sprung. And then our back just kind of broadens out. So the back is lengthening and widening. The shoulders are opening and dropping. The neck is free. Jaw is free. The eyes are free. You can breathe, you can move. And I just from here, just what happens if you think from here of that situation, which usually triggers you a little bit. You're just kind of keeping that organization and integration of head, neck, and shoulders and spine kind of loose and aligned, free, spacious.
Like a sensation of, instead of collapsing, it's like a washing of something, it just flows past me.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Nice. And James, what does that start to make more possible for you as you continue to let your shoulders and your neck just, your head forward and up, your, everything just aligned in a soft, open, beautiful way? What does it start to make more possible for you, even in that situation?
Physically, I feel more fluid. More sort of easy movement.
Yeah.
And in that situation, instead of being stopped, I feel like it's an opening to move forward.
Wow. Lovely.
Yeah, it's a much more soft and gentle kind of.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And is that a difference that makes a difference for you? That looks amazing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think so. Yes. It feels very different.
Yes. Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. That's a lovely demonstration of just something. It's so simple, isn't it? It's so simple, really.
Thank you for the gift.
Yeah, thank you for sharing with everyone. Thank you, James. So we're going to be in pairs. And the idea is you can kind of, identify something that kind of gets you a bit crashy. I would not say choose the worst thing, but, something that starts you going down that little scale of kind of 6, 5, 4, maybe. That would be probably the cutoff for this. It's something that's sort of irritating or aggravating more than anything. And what we're going to do particularly is focus on, the spine lengthening, the back broadening and widening. Normally it's impossible to show this, but the head is kind of, forward and up, but let's just think about releasing and freeing the neck and shoulders, and as well in the jaw as well. So we're just offering invitations to your partner, just you don't have to do it in a very still way. As you can see, I said, just like move around till you've got that kind of feeling that things have loosened out, especially in this area. And then start to think, what difference does this make? What difference does it make? And what does it start to make more possible, even in that situation? So you can take your time with each other, but it's just 5 minutes each way. And, add in breathing, add in anything else that you want to. But I'm specifically bringing in this kind of primary control mechanism from the Alexander technique as a kind of extra tool for us today. I know you probably all have lots and lots of ways of doing this, but this is just kind of like an extra thing in terms of enhancing the coach experience and what that does for us all, the difference it makes to go into something rather than, as James said, I thought that was great when he said, I've gone into turtle. And then he goes, I've got this like soft, I'm softly moving forward into something now. It's completely different kind of experience and relationship. So in pairs, 5 minutes each way. Thank you, Aki. Okay, how did everyone get on with that? Any sort of feedback? So this is a way of shifting something just purely somatically, with a kind of just bringing awareness to the neuromusculature, specifically around your head, neck and shoulders, and having a sense of poise and gracefulness and flow as you sit, and finding out what happens from there. So it's just running a little experiment really on adding hopefully new layers and richness into the coach state for you. Anybody want to, I think the interesting thing is, what does it make more possible? Did it make things more possible for you once you could just release those muscles, and start really breathing again? Anyone want to chip in here? Put your hand up, anyone want to say? How did it go? Just want a little bit of feedback, that's all. Did it go well? Did you get something from it? Is it useful? Who'd like to say something? Paul.
Yeah, hiya.
Hiya.
Whilst when you were doing the exercise with James,
Yeah.
I was kind of tagging along in a way, having a little bit of a free ride.
Yeah,
and
good.
It was really fascinating what happened, because when you asked, what is it that kind of takes you into a bit of a crash state, immediately I had an idea that it's for me, it's like busyness.
Okay, yeah.
Too much to do,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And but I noticed as soon as we started playing about with the muscles and stuff like
Yeah.
that, I noticed like suddenly I was a dancer, I was a martial artist, I was a matador. These aren't things that come naturally to me, really. I'm quite a still
That's
person
great,
generally.
though, Paul.
So yeah, so I felt there was an immediate change, and I started
Yeah.
kind of, I was moving around the room like a pretend matador at times. So yeah, I'm hoping that some of that will be useful when busyness occurs.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's right. That's right. And you can kind of change that. Sometimes you might not so much want to be a matador as you say, be more of a dancer.
Yeah.
Or more of a, like I love the way that James said it was just kind of, it felt quite slow and gentle and soft, what happened for him. So I think you can scale it, energetically and, in any way that you want. So good, that sounds really excellent, wonderful, well done. And I think that is the way to watch demos, is to kind of put yourself in there and get, double your money kind of thing. That's what I always do as well. So it's a great skill to do that. Okay, anybody else want to say anything about that? So this is our first Generative Citizen thing, platform of Coach State. I'm sure you all have lots and lots to share, and that you already know about how to do that. But I think it's a lifetime job, which is why I've done Alexander technique lessons for, I don't know, 35 years or something, just because I constantly am wanting to just, be able to be, the resourceful, empathetic me, at my best that I want to be, and not sort of like constrained by old habits and reactions. It's like how to make the world more spacious and be more free. So this is at least one thing. Okay, good. The second thing, identity. You remember there was a long, long list of all these, wonderful things that we can work on, including, working with our shadow and working through re-imprinting and working really to, and I know that Julian particularly is very, very strong on all of this, and, the kind of deep personal development that means such a lot to him, and that is really his mission, I think. So, I've got like a little mini exercise around this, which is about, and it actually comes from Robert Dilts's work in double binds, which is a very interesting sort of area for understanding things about identity, especially, double binds that are happening where you kind of don't know who you are or what you feel or whatever in a particular kind of situation. So I've taken this like super, super simple little exercise and activity for us today, as again, one example among a million that you might use. And this one strengthens your sense of personal resourcefulness. It has a strengthening effect at a kind of a healing effect at a kind of identity level. So again, it's very, very simple and straightforward. And I'd love to have somebody to demonstrate it with. Who would love to do this? Again, it's like a little 5-minute thing that we'll do. Who would like to volunteer to do the demo for this? Oh, Georgianne, lovely. Let's do that. Georgianne. Lovely. Yay. Yeah, good to see you. So, Georgianne, this is like super, super simple little exercise. Nothing you haven't done, I'm sure, a million times before. And it's here just because I think it's very clarifying. So I'll explain the exercise to you and everyone else, and then we'll just do it. There's 2 questions in it. So it's got like a little structure. And really the context for it is maybe a situation where you feel you can't really be yourself, or, you know, you're confused or something like that, where maybe there's different messages coming in or whatever. This is the sort of double bind aspect of it. But it can just be something where you just feel a bit knocked into crash, you know, you've just gone a little bit into more of a crash state than your coach state. And so you're not actually quite at your best in a situation. You're, you know, suboptimal, you know, performance and range and ability to choose wisely is happening right then. So the first little thing to fill in is just going, I feel, and then you name the power of naming the emotion that you feel. So that's the first part of it. You just literally, you pick a context. Again, we don't need to know even what it is, Georgianne, that can just be private to you. So there's a context where you are a little bit, you know, you're more in crash than coach, an interpersonal context normally. And the first thing is, I feel, and you literally name and speak the feeling that you feel. Then that's followed up part 2 by the words, I want more. And then you name and identify the resources that you need. And of course, as we know, as you identify your resources, you start to trigger them and they start to become available to you. And then we'll have a look at kind of if for you that starts to make a difference and moves you up that scale, because we're looking at always, you know, always be moving up the scale from our crush states, moving it up a, you know, a number, moving up another half number, you know, moving towards being more centered, more open, more aware, more connected, you know, more able to be welcoming and hospitable to whatever comes up. So have you got in your own mind a context that,
oh yes,
oh yes, we've all got one, haven't we? That's great, Georgianne, great. Okay, so the first piece is just to say, I feel. So you can literally say those words. So in this context, I feel, and then what you want are literally words for emotions.
I feel, and do I say them? I feel overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed. Okay. Okay. So I feel overwhelmed. Are there any other words that come up?
Incapable.
Okay.
Pretty, sorry, did you want something light?
No, this is perfect, Georgianne. This is absolutely perfect. But this is the worst bit in a way. Yeah. But I mean, it's also good because it's about just going, oh, this is actually what is, you know. Yeah. I actually feel overwhelmed. I feel incapable. You know, when I think about that situation, you know, I'm not in a coach state anymore. I've lost it. I've gone into like a crash state, overwhelmed, incapable. Any other words you want to throw in there? All words are welcome.
So exhausted.
Exhausted.
So not exactly useless, but it's pointless, or or like a hamster.
Yeah. Yes. What would you say the feeling is of being like a hamster? It's like, I mean, I'm wondering if it's sad as well, or
no, I mean, I can tell you that, I don't know if you want the context, but
no, you can just
it's just
this is good. We may have enough.
Okay.
So I've got overwhelmed, incapable, exhausted, and something I now can't read.
Well, there was the hamster thing that it was kind of useless, or it's pointless doing anything.
Pointless.
Yeah.
Despair.
I had felt despair. I can get back to despair quite easily. Yeah.
But we're not, okay. What does it do? So to begin with, before we go to the resources, what does it do for you just to kind of like say those words just cleanly, clearly, you know, boom, like that, no story, no background, you know, just you know, this is literally how I feel, you know, when I'm in that situation.
It feels much more neutral without.
Yes. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Feels much more neutral just to be able to cleanly say, without all the storyline and all and they said this and I didn't know that and all of that, just go, actually, I just feel overwhelmed and exhausted, you know, and incapable. Okay, brilliant. So the next part is just to say, and I want more. So what we're looking at now is names of the resources.
And I want more energy.
Okay, I want more energy.
I want more motivation.
I want more motivation.
I think energy and motivation.
I mean, that.
I'm holding my breath as I say it.
Yeah.
You know, those are the two things I just feel completely.
Yes.
Beat up. I just think, what? You know, I just can't.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's do it this way, though. Let's do it this way. Take a breath and do it in quite a gentle way. And just be able to say, and I want more. And as you say those words, energy, just really tap in, even if it's a low energy at the moment, that's okay, but just energy. You wouldn't know to say you wanted energy, Georgianne, unless you had an example of it in you.
Yeah, right.
You know, and we know that you've got energy. Shall I tell you why? Because we've just seen you go a hamster wheel incredibly energetically. So we know you've got some energy. So that's interesting though, isn't it? To go, yeah, you can identify energy because you can feel it in you. You can identify motivation because you can feel it in you, or you wouldn't know to identify it. But let's do it in a soft way, because it doesn't have to be, you know, kind of a great amplification of energy, but let's just say it again. So I want more energy, just feel it.
I want more energy.
Energy.
So I'm laughing at the hamster wheel. I'm laughing at myself. You know, how can I say I want more energy?
I know. It did strike me as a paradox. And motivation.
Yeah, motivation.
Okay, so just feel that, you know, just kind of sense that's coming from somewhere.
Yes.
Just sense that though these are your resources. Energy, motivation.
Motivation.
That's right. So let's do the two things where you go, I feel overwhelmed and exhausted and, you know, things pointless and incapable or whatever. And I want more energy, motivation, and just have that in a clear way from more of a kind of coach state. So one more time, I feel
overwhelmed and exhausted.
And I want more.
And I want more motivation.
And energy. Okay. And take a breath. And what does just even saying that, I know we've done like the simplest thing, Georgianne, but what difference does it make? What does just taking this moment to name what's going on and identify some of your resources in a clean way, what does that do for you?
Well, for a start, the naming of I want the motivation.
Yeah.
I've sort of narrowed it down to that in a sense, because I realize I obviously do have the energy
Yes.
to answer, and
Yes.
the sort of not
Yeah.
using that energy, not.
That's right. So I'm not trying to solve anything here.
Okay.
You know, we're not trying to solve anything, or, you know,
That's
it's just experiential for you.
It feels like that. It feels like the naming.
Yes.
And I'm also just aware, I'm just so aware of this that I did that. I mean, you know, just how the body speaks.
I know.
You know, it's just crazy that I'm saying I have no energy and I'm doing that.
Yeah. So what does it make more possible for you? I mean, just to do this little explanation, we'll bring this to a halt.
For me to start.
Okay.
You know, to look at what I have to do.
Okay.
I mean, it's a lot of physical stuff, but you know.
No, yeah. Okay. Well, that's good, isn't it? Just to like be, you know, to kind of make progress towards something. Yes.
It's a bit lighter.
A bit lighter. Lovely.
Less.
Lovely. Well done. Thank you, Georgianne. Thank you.
An image has come to mind.
Yes.
Of a spinning wool and creating wool.
Oh.
That just came from that hamster wheel.
Yeah. Lovely.
I had the spinning and the wool.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Excellent. I love it, Georgianne. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing that. So this is the exercise. And again, it's a tiny, tiny, weeny little thing, but it's about just saying, when I'm in this context, I feel this. And I think what Georgianne said so beautifully was there's something came out that helped to kind of neutralize it, just through naming and owning and in a way welcoming, you know, those labels, kind of going, this is my experience. And then the next part of that is, and I want more, and those are resources. So the first bit is negative emotions. The second bit is resources. I want more, and those are your resources. And what does it do for you? Again, to connect to those, to identify them, to own them, and to have this kind of what you feel, what you have, all brought together in this very kind of clean way. So any questions about the activity? Okay, take us away, Achim. 5 minutes each way, new partners. Great. So I think it's a very handy little exercise just to ground you in what's really happening, and to start the process of identifying, literally activating and mobilizing a sense of who you really are, because we are our resources. You know, we're not our problems, we are the resources. I mean, feelings are also resources, of course, but I think that exercise, so this just came under the identity to sort of strengthen a sense of reality in yourself and capability and resourcefulness in yourself, and to kind of, ground it, you know, bring something out of a storyline and just be very, very clear in the present moment about what's happening and what you've got, you know. So I wonder if there were any comments that people had, what it did, what did that do for you? What did it make more possible for you? Anybody?
Hi.
Yes, Barbara. Hi.
Hi, Barbara.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I found it made me, I shortened my need resource statement. The more I did it, the more I enhanced it.
Interesting.
And what I really appreciate you sharing is how powerful this very simple exercise is in terms of increasing somebody's sense of identity and keeping them grounded. I'm just so excited. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad it really worked that way for you. I think it's just so simple and so powerful. And it's it's one of those things where you go, oh, that does a really good job, and it's, and it's only got like 2 steps as well. So,
and the implications, the creative applications are amazing. Thank you so much.
That's right. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Anyone else want to add anything about your experience of doing that? Yeah, very simple exercise. So we've done something. We're probably not going to get round to all 5 of my principles for Generative Citizen at this point, but we've started on something about coach, something about identity. The next one is empathy. And I thought we'd do something again, there's so much that we could do. And all the time, how can we just really be compassionate to ourselves, compassionate to others, bring deeper and deeper understanding to what's really happening for human beings, and have a sort of fellow feeling for other human beings. So I'd like to do another demonstration. So I'd like to take for this one, again, of the many things we could do, the principle of positive intention, which I'm sure, I know is something that you've worked with. It's often one of the more misunderstood principles of how we work in NLP, that all behavior is driven by values, meaningful values, positive intentions. So in other words, we're looking beyond just what the behavior is and going, what's really driving something that is a human value that's important to somebody. And as you probably know from yourselves, all the very worst things that we and other people do are, because people feel loneliness and they want to connect, or because people feel small and they want to feel big, or, people feel overwhelmed and they want to sort of set boundaries. All the worst kinds of behaviors actually do come from positive intentions. Steve Gilligan actually did a wonderful, wonderful presentation on this. I don't know how many people saw it. I saw it. And he was talking about actually how to be careful not to sort of extend this principle in a way, in the same way, to people who are like extremely sociopathic. But I think I always say that it's more like, yeah, there are positive intentions for all behaviors, but it's like, that's not always a positive intention for other people. It's not always a positive intention towards others. The impact of someone's behavior can be very, very negative, and that needs to be dealt with in its own right, not just understood. And I'm sure we all know what that means. So I'd love to have someone else to work with who would love to, again, in a very simple way, explore a little bit of empathy for yourself and for another person in a situation. Again, we don't need to know what the situation is. You can just pick something that you would like to work with, where you would like to extend more compassion and understanding in a situation, sort of heart energy, isn't it? Who would like to do that? Who hasn't is that Iris? Is that you? Did you say, put your hand up? Iris, hey? There's 2 Irises.
Yes, I think I meant to put it, I was accidentally, but I was thinking in my mind, so that's.
I'd love that, Iris. Great, let's do it. Good to meet you. Good to see you. Okay, so I'm wondering if there's a kind of context that you can think of that you don't need to share the story of it with us. but it's a context where maybe you don't really understand what's going on between you and another person, or something like that, or some situation where maybe even you behave in a way that is not up to your own standards. You know, again, you don't have to share this with us, so we never need to know, Iris, what this is. But where you sort of come away and you're a little bit disappointed in yourself, maybe. So it can either be that there's somebody else you don't understand, or even yourself you don't understand in an interaction. Have you got something?
Oh, yes, of course.
We've all got one of everything, haven't we? That's the thing.
Yes.
The nice thing about being a human being together, though, isn't it? That we can appreciate that. So the first thing is, let's just sort of find a little bit this coach state, and just sort of take a moment to breathe and to come present for yourself, and relax in your shoulders, and, you know, do all those nice things that help you just really, you know, be ready to, you know, explore and be curious and welcome. So I'm wondering, and I don't know whether it's going to work best to start with yourself or for the other person. Do you know which way you'd like to begin?
Maybe start with myself, because the emotion always coming from myself. Yeah.
Okay. So I want you just to really, really, you know, enjoy you. Take a breath. What is the positive intention and purpose of your behavior in that interaction? What's important about it? What are you trying to achieve through it? What matters? What's meaningful? What's it really about for you? And I'm wondering if there's like a kind of value that pops up, which is not what the behavior, it's not the behavior, it's another quality that's driving that choice of behavior.
As you asked, before you asked the question, you asked me to drop into me.
Yes.
I drop my breath to my belly, but then I have a headache. And then as you asked the question, my headache is kind of melting, because I know, I just gave you a little bit context of what's happening. It's an issue with the friendship, that my friend betrays that friendship, or trade the friendship for money. So
Right.
that made me feel really painful. And
Yes. I'm sorry.
behavior towards her is to justify, to kind of discipline her. This is not the way how you deal with friends, in a very passive way. But then when you ask me what's my positive intention, so I realized that my intention to discipline her becomes so narrow. So when you ask a question, the quality of the question expands my vision.
Yes.
When you ask about positive energy, then I realized my intention is purely driven by my own value, that friendship should look like this.
Yes. Yes.
Do this. So then my vision is very tunnel. So then the question is expand. So my headache disappear.
Yes.
So it expands my vision about how to look at that problem. I realize, it's not what I can understand as a positive intention. That's my intention. I know my intention is to help her to understand.
Yes.
To help her to see what's that.
Yes.
What she did.
That's right.
That's to me, and so I have a little bit sense of I'm punishing her, a kind of not a good friend.
I understand. I can hear all of those sides of it. Actually, you're describing it so well. So what I'm interested in, so now you're more aware of that, and this kind of space has opened out. So let's just take a breath and let's leave you in that nice space. What's a positive intention? What, now that you've got a sense of positive intention for you, what's driving your friend's behavior or was driving your friend's behavior? What's the positive intention they had?
I have a feeling, I have a sense that loyalty is not on top of her value.
Okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do is just recenter.
Okay.
And just have a little bit of that sort of, you may not want to do this actually, so feel free not to, but just a little bit of that sort of heart energy where you're going, what really was driving that? So without having a story, see if there's something that you can just kind of go, what's really the purpose of that? And it's okay, negative or positive, it's fine. But what really... So in other words, it's not a story, it's more of an experience of stepping into her shoes and going, if I was her and I did this, like, what would that be about? What would that be for? What's the purpose?
You mean her intense purpose or her?
Yeah. What was the intent? And the values? What were the positive values at work there, even if they may have only been for her?
I think her purpose is to get what she wants.
Okay.
And at the same time, she also wants this friendship, so she wants both.
Okay. And okay. So now that you've also got this kind of space, you've kind of stepped a little bit into her shoes with a bit of heart energy going on. Going, what's really going on for her? She goes, well, my intention is to somehow get something that I want and keep my friend. Is there anything beyond that? I mean, what does that do for her? What does that give her? If that had happened, what would that have given her? Like, what was the real purpose of this? To do what? To kind of somehow, change things or expand or, feel better about herself, or what really do you think it was?
I think she has this probably idea that's probably it's okay to do that. So I don't know.
Oh, and it's okay because it's a positive thing. It's okay.
Because she thinks there's a value in her that she should get the payoff, so that she thinks she's helping me doing that is
okay.
that I should pay that. So
well, that's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I don't know what I mean. So we're just really exploring, like, what are the positive intentions on each side of this for you, for your friend? Maybe this is something that you can continue just to be wondering, like, what's really, really important here on both sides that's happening in this interaction. But I'm wondering what you've aware of so far, what's been important so far, what you've learned or you've noticed.
I think I noticed the most is that your question, when you ask that question, is what I mean. My initial response or behavior is like a child behavior, just like when you were in the kindergarten, like kind of you draw a line. I'm not going to play with you because you're not. So it's kind of. But then your question asking that two important words, that positive. What's my positive intention for my behavior? But I know that's yeah. So once you ask that question, that opened the door to the new space.
And what does us just having this little bit of a conversation, what does this make more possible for you now? What does having this conversation leave for you?
So I will use this question to ask me when I encounter the similar situation again, because this has, I mean, it's not a loss. Sometimes it will happen to me that because the way how I see friendship is different, not different, will be put me into this vulnerable situation. So when I will ask the question again, then I would respond differently.
Yes, okay. Yes. So is that helpful? Is that do you feel this has been helpful just to sort of start exploring what's really driving and motivating behaviors on each side? Has it helped you understand yourself better?
Yeah, I think
helped you understand the other person better?
I understand myself better, but then in the other people's sides, I still have the story.
Yes, well, fair enough. It's just a tiny little thing. I mean, but it is a tool, I think, to really strengthen our ability to create empathy with other people. And maybe a friend who's just recently done you wrong is not necessarily going to like just work out straight away. But I think beginning with empathy with yourself, I think is a really wonderful place to be. And I really appreciate you sharing that with us, Iris.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That was lovely. Thank you. So we're right on the edge of what we would have, you know, where we are in a way. I'd like to just quickly go back to my, wherever they are, my PowerPoints, and just quickly sort of review the 5 practices. Oh, I didn't mean to do that.
Judith, while you're doing that, I've had a message from Julian to the group saying he's really sorry he can't be there today. He's on holiday and he's going to listen to the recording.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
All right.
So as we're right at the end, I just thought I would, so this is just saying these are the 5 practices and the ones we haven't really got to. So we've done a little bit on coach. We've done a little bit on identity, sort of strengthening identity, starting to do something on, you know, building empathy. And what I was going to do on communication is things like using language and, you know, looking at how we use language and the particular kind of words that we use. And then also, you know, for this part of it, at least for today, I was going to suggest that what we do is that we have, that you have like questions or statements, you know, about what you would like to know more about. Which area do you think, you know, you would really benefit from just having a little bit more, you know, go-to knowledge and foundation in? That would be helpful, not to proselytize or to bang people over the head with, but just literally to inform, you know, as a kind of informed, engaged citizen who knows something about, you know, history and who knows something about sort of, you know, prejudices and difficulties that different people might experience. So that was the last of that. So what I'd like to do now. So we've got like about 5 minutes before the end. I'd love to hear from you what you think of the idea, this idea of like a sort of generative citizen pathway of working together in groups. I think it would probably be, maybe, I don't know what it would be, but but putting these 5 things together. Anybody got anything they want to contribute? Or any questions for me? Really, I'd love to have any questions. And, I hope you all did the positive intention exercise while I was working with Iris as well, so that we kind of did that together, because I just think that's a brilliant exercise, but obviously that, there's more to solving something than just that. But yes, Barbara.
Hi, I was thinking, I didn't think you were thinking maybe that move it forward and maybe create some groups, maybe on Zoom, to take problems or situations and use this particular format to come up with some wonderful action. I think that'd be great. I mean,
it'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Nice and clean and I think what happens is creatively we come up with some interesting new ideas and then maybe ways to manifest them in the world. Globally.
That's right. Wonderful.
Thank you.
And I think that can be scaled, Barbara. So the idea of generative citizen is it's literally the way that you talk to the person in the shop. That you bring your presence and kind of generous spirit and a kind of hail friend kind of energy wherever we go, because it makes everybody feel better, and that's how people feel safe. That's how people feel they're in community. That's how you feel it's worthwhile being a human being, through connection and relationship and that kind of just little everyday spark. I don't mean that should always be a kind of like cheery person who all the shopkeepers dread coming in, but just it's more like kind of whenever the spirit moves, you're kind of ready to just be a human being there in a very full way. And we're using our skills at that end of the scale, but also, as you say, kind of scaling up to support people in absolutely extraordinary projects for peace, projects for new technologies, projects for new ways of living together, for new kinds of relationships, for new kinds of schools and hospitals and healing and biofuels and kind of like everything you can think of, that is about sustainability and about kind of beauty of life. I feel we can bring all of this, but we need to work on ourselves in a kind of organized, structured way, and in a way that's going to work, because we really do have the technology and the tools in here. I think we've got such a lot to offer everybody.
I agree.
Great if we could just do it.
I think the other part is when it gets crunchy, to be able to have the humanity and the empathy to keep going in there, and safety. Thank you.
Yes, I love that. Thanks, Barbara. Michelle.
Hi. It does sound very, very exciting, Judith. I just love the way you put this together. And I'm thinking, evidence-based is really important for me. It's like, well, how, it'd be really good to have groups that are, like almost like I don't want to use this word, but it's the only one that came to mind. Is like accountability groups, groups where we could talk about how we could do things differently and have some kind of scales in saying, well, that we can kind of like questionnaires or whatever that can be developed, so we can say, okay, well, I'm really strong in this, and then here's an area. But we would also get that feedback from somebody else where they'd say, well, what I notice about you is you're strong here, but maybe you need a little bit more practice in here. So so I'd be interested for you to expand the model and then come up with some kind of whatever it is, like, and I really like the ideas, pre-trial and post-trial. Well, where did I start and where am I now? I
like that as well, that there's a kind of sense of tracking progress, you know,
Yes.
and, you know,
Yeah.
maybe we only track progress like once a year or something, because you kind of go, oh yeah, this time last year I was thinking that, and, you know, that you can have these kind of waypoints. But also I think just enjoying life more,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
that would be a way that you kind of go, I enjoy people, I enjoy life, I feel more engaged in like the terrible things that are going on, and more engaged in the kind of amazing, beautiful things that are going on.
There are actually already there's positive state assessments that, you know, that are available.
Yeah.
That would be very useful for something like this. And, you know, and there's also assessments on empathy, compassion, spirituality, you know, I mean, so I just think it would be really interesting. And the other thing too, is obviously some of these skill sets, some of them, when you're working with populations, some are going to be emphasized more than the other 5. And then of course, there's the global, where it all kind of comes together, where it integrates out, so it becomes an integral program. But yeah, thank you so much.
And I think it should be fun. I think we should all learn how to do playback theatre, and, you know, have like a really brilliant time, you know, have a lot of laughter, have a lot of fun and joy together, and kind of take that, you know, model how things can be. It's not that we're not also suffering and we can't also be compassionate at that level, but that, you know, let's bring art and beauty into the world.
The aesthetics of the whole thing. Yeah,
that's right.
Sure.
That's right. Anyway, it's been a joy to be here. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I hope you've enjoyed it, and you know, it's given you a good couple of hours of practice, and you've had the chance to have lovely time with each other as well, which of course is always absolutely gorgeous thing to do, to meet our, you know, our friends together and kind of recommit to this kind of development of ourselves that we're doing. So thank you so much. Thank you to Julian. Thank you to Akim. Thank you to Marina. Lovely, lovely to see you all, and lots and lots of love.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks very much.
Thank you, Judith.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful work. Beautiful.
Thank you immensely.
Thank you.
Really, really wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Lovely.
See you again.
Yes.
I hope so.
Bye, Maggie.
I'll see you again.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Iris.